GB News is concerned that the government has rebranded illegal migration as irregular migration, and it offers a critical analysis of the implications of such a, quote, terminological shift. The GB News journalists employ quite a bit of sarcasm in their analysis of this to underscore the belief that merely changing terminology does not address the underlying issues of migration enforcement and border security. Despite the rebranding, they say Section 24 of the Immigration Act 1971 remains unchanged, maintaining the legal framework that defines illegal entry into the UK. Not quite, actually. It's about the problems that link the 1971 Act to the 1951 Refugee Convention, of which we are still signatories. And it's about the absurdity of the three acts that were put forward under Suella Braverman. The Nationality and Borders Act in 2022, which makes the use of illegal routes to come to the UK illegal in itself. This gets a 19.1a approval, which means that it's almost acceptable on an international scale. It gives the Home Office, the Home Office Secretary, the Secretary of State, powers and obligations to deal with, quote, illegal migration. The problem is it flies in the face of the international convention that although an illegal route may be used to access a country, the moment somebody gets to that country and claims asylum, they're no longer illegal. This is then followed by the Illegal Migration Act 2023, which declares Rwanda to be a safe country. And that is something that got a 19.1b statement, which means that the Suella Braverman was not sure that it would be considered legal internationally, legal in Strasbourg. And that basically says that anybody who arrives in this country should be made ready to be deported to Rwanda or elsewhere. And thirdly, there's the Rwanda bill in 2004, which was put out after Suella Braverman stopped being Home Secretary, but very much in her spirit. So these three bills, these three acts, which are now acts, need to be repealed by the current Labour government if there's to be any sense in its, quote, rebranding. Otherwise, we have a series of laws on the statute books which fly in the face of reality and directly contradict our obligations internationally. So I'm afraid this government is going to have to waste time unpicking the rubbish sewn into the system by Suella Braverman. She has done a great deal of damage. And the report suggests that the report from GB News suggests that the Labour Party's change in terminology is part of a broader strategy to deflect serious debate about migration control into discussions about language, and they could be right about that. So unless the Labour government is prepared to repeal these three laws, all it is doing is playing around with the dictionary. And this, according to the author, could potentially undermine efforts to combat illegal migration by creating a perception of leniency. I think there, this is rather like Farage. Farage is very good at identifying a problem, but his solution is not necessarily practical or indeed appropriate. And like Suella Braverman, he's incapable of separating problem from solution. And the same thing is true of the person who has penned this GB News report and the journalist who put it out. The person who penned it is a fellow called Kevin Foster, and but it's been disseminated generally in GB News over the last 24 hours, and it's a sort of mess, because part of it is correct, and I fear the Labour Party is going to try and bluff their way through this one without taking the time to repeal these three laws and just simply change the terminology, change the language which is used. That is not enough. And that is likely to land the country in a lot of hot water, deep water. The report, the GB News report, accuses Labour of inconsistency in its migration policies, highlighting past contradictions between advocating for more visas, advocating for ID cards, criticising the lack of adequate job offers for key workers. The overall tone suggests scepticism towards Labour's approach, viewing it as a move that could embolden people traffickers and increase migration challenges over the summer. The summer, I'm afraid, is dead. The summer, we are reaping the whirlwind of the inadequacy and the stupidity of the last few years of Home Office control by the Conservative ministers, by Priti Patel, by Suella Braverman, by Cleverly, and their inadequacy, their stupidity, is simply putting into practice the hostile environment as envisaged by Theresa May. So it's a string of stupidity that goes all the way back 14 years. And the Home Office is the source of most of the problems that can be identified in the last Conservative government. And they have got worse and worse and worse with this obsession in using divisive, discriminatory rhetoric in place of real solutions, using Rwanda rather than reality. And the Labour Party looks as if it's going down the same route, using rebranding rather than substantive policy change that will effectively address the complexities of the migration issues that we face. Ultimately, I think the only solution is one that combines an international conference and a redefinition of the 1951 Refugee Convention, along with permission to building consular facilities that can be accessed by potential migrants in the north of France, maybe elsewhere. I think that would then trigger a move by European countries to build their own consular facilities in the north of Africa, in Turkey, and so on, and a move away from starting the asylum application only in the country, a move to offshore that asylum application in much the same way as Giorgia Meloni wants to offshore the asylum process. But the application itself would benefit from being offshored in the first place. And that might help to lessen the damage and the blockage, this sort of backup that we are experiencing. But we are experiencing that blockage partly because it was self-inflicted, and we need the ex-lax of thoughtful legislation and the uh, the purging of Suella Braverman's nonsense. To continue the lavatorial imagery, her three bills need to become the loo paper of tomorrow.